And welcome back.
We are about to venture off into our third segment for the morning. Actually, the Belize Tapir project, the adventure of Tenuk. Now, in to tell us more about it is Celso Poot, who is actually the manager of the Belize Tapir project, and McLoughlin, who is the Terrestrial program coordinator for WCS, Mesoamerica, and Western. Guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you guys in.
Good morning. And where is our tapir?
Yeah, we should have brought one this morning.
We have them all over Belize.
I thought you were going to say it's on your shirt. No, of course, this is our national animal. I think
Yes.
definitely it's a great opportunity to be able to learn more about what's happening to ensure that they're protected and that we understand them as best as possible. So let's start off talking about the Belize Tapir project.
Well, the Belize Tapir project started in 2008 when we noticed an increase in tapir vehicle collision along the Boom Road. Since then, we have grown from just monitoring tapir vehicle collision to actively being involved with research and looking at how they're using the landscape in central Belize. Ultimately, coming up with recommendations for safe passage for wildlife, not only tapirs.
So, as your shirt indicates, there are particular signs in some areas indicating that tapirs may be traversing the highway there.
Sadly, the signs have been stolen, they were removed.
Really?
Yeah, this is something I have to continuously do, replace the signs.
But who would steal a tapir crossing sign?
Yeah, I don't know.
You can
They're
get the
cool, I mean,
t-shirts.
they're
I
on
was
the
gonna say,
t-shirt.
they're cool to look at. You can get the t-shirt.
Yeah, but you can get a
stealing the
t-shirt.
sign.
Yeah. So at the start of the dry season every year when the tapirs, we know they move more during the dry season, we go back on the Boom Road and make sure that people are aware that tapirs are using, it's not they may use, they
Yeah.
are using
Yeah.
it. They are using
You
the
know where
road.
I frequently see them? Right by the entrance of Vista Del Mar, across from the entrance of Vista Del Mar. Like just along the side of the road,
Yeah.
thankfully not crossing the same time
Yeah.
as me. But, so I learned to look out for them there. Why is it that we still have tapirs coming so close to areas that are populated?
They're very resilient animals. I mean, they're what we refer to as prehistoric mammals. They've been around for millions of years.
Of course.
And they're very adaptable as well. But they can only adapt to a certain extent, because if we're cutting down their homes, we're taking away their food, and we're pushing them more and more into into human-dominated landscape, and they will not be able to survive much longer. So why they're in this area, that is what we're trying to find out. That is what we're trying to answer through the Belize Tapir project and our research.
In the country, where is the largest concentration of tapirs?
Good question.
the bush?
Just before we came in, Lee and I were talking about this just before we came in.
You knew we were going to ask that question.
Well, we know that Belize has a healthy population of the Central American tapir. That we know. And we know that you can find them across the country.
Okay.
There are no studies to give you an estimate as to how many we have.
Living in specific areas.
Correct. And you go to any of the protected areas in Belize Terrestrial, you will find evidence of tapirs in them. So we have them across the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the unique behaviors of our tapirs.
So, first of all, there are 4 species of tapirs in the world. We have the Central American tapir, which ranges from southern Mexico down to northern Colombia. So that's one species. The other 3 species are the mountain tapir, the lowland tapir, and then in Asia there's the Malayan tapir. Ours is globally endangered. Population models say there are about 5,000 of these animals remaining in the wild through their geographic range. They have a gestation period of about 13 months.
Whoa.
The young ones stay with their mom for about a year. So you're looking at between birth of at least 2.5 to 3 years before they give another young.
Yeah.
So they have a very low reproductive rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is one of the biggest challenge to tapirs. They cannot reproduce.
Yeah, so the population will only grow slowly
Correct.
if they're allowed to reproduce.
So they're strictly herbivores. They don't eat meat. Though you'll get stories of them attacking hunters, dogs, and stuff like that. But they're strictly herbivorous animal. They are more, our species is more browsers. So they feed a lot on twigs, on grass, on bush. And they eat fruits as well.
Okay.
And because of that, we have incidents where they come into contact with people farm, and so they're referred to as crop raiding tapirs because they would eat your produce as well.
Are they aggressive?
We find that they're more aggressive when they have young. I have come face to face with tapirs, and I go one way and he or she go the other way. Yeah.
So they're not aggressive animals. They only protect their young like every other animal.
That is correct. That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, what are their threats? What threatens the population?
So the biggest threat to tapirs geographically, not only in Belize, is deforestation. So when we cut down the forest, we create fragments of forest, little patches of forest. Roads and other clearing create barrier for these animals to move across the landscape. And they move across the landscape for different reasons. So in search of food, in search of water, and in search of mate, so they can breed.
Of course.
Right? So those are the main reasons why they move across the landscape. The other problem is hunting. Tapirs are hunted throughout their range. And more we're finding evidence that tapirs are still hunted in Belize, sadly.
Really?
To
For
say
meat?
so. For meat, yeah, for human consumption.
Really?
Again, that is something Lee and I were talking about just before we came in. We need to look at how prevalent that is in the country.
Yeah.
But we have found, at least I personally, 3 carcasses that were slaughtered. And obviously,
Wow.
So Lee, tell us about the work of WCS and how you're involved with the Tapir project.
Yeah, well, actually, I started this work at my previous job. My previous employer was with the Yashe Conservation Trust in Toledo. And this was an idea to put together a book. When I was working with them and the Tapir specialist group, who Celso is now the leader of in Belize at the international level. But yeah, so the book was basically an idea that came out of finding solutions to, I mean, we always come up with the problems and the threats, but we wanted to look at what are some of the ways that ultimately Belizeans can coexist with the tapir. And as Celso mentions, forest loss is a big problem for the species. You know, they need a place to live, they need forest to pass through, they need to be near water, especially forest near rivers and streams. And so clearance for farming is one of the biggest threats. But, you know, again, the work that Yashe does in the south works very closely on this, which is maintaining forested corridors through farmland. So not cutting down all the forest, but leaving patches whereby the animals can pass through safely. And so the themes in the book, I mean, the book's targeted at like 6 to 9 year olds. It's actually a colouring book, but the story refers to like this young boy whose father's a farmer who has recognised the importance of keeping a bit of forest on his land that the tapirs and the animals can pass through. And this is a young tapir that's going off to find his new territory where he can live and, you know, find a mate, as Celso says. And he meets some other animals along the way, and exactly the threats that Celso's talking about, like road collisions, loss of forest fires, are some of the things that we've illustrated in the book. I also just wanted to mention that, as Celso mentioned, they have tapirs in Malaysia on the other side of the world, and actually the guy who illustrated this book is Malaysian, and we had originally designed the book to be something that could be for kids both here and also over in Malaysia.
Okay.
So obviously they speak a different language, they speak Bahasa, but this book can be easily translated and we can change the words around. And they have the same species. They have we have an ocelot, they have a clouded leopard. We have the Belize tapir, they have the Malayan tapir. We have the spider monkey, they have the langur monkey. So it's like, you know, kids
like
on this side of the world
there,
can learn the same way that they face the same threats over there as well.
What's the lifespan for a tapir?
18 to 20 years in the wild, but we know that they can go as much as 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
April.
April went all the way. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
April the Tapir was
April
very
is
famous
the
as well.
most famous.
I heard about April since I was a little boy growing up in
Yeah.
PG.
Yeah.
But you know, it's heart wrenching to know that we're still these animals are actually still being hunted here at home for meat consumption. We know that they're not aggressive animals as well, and I would think that the jaguar is actually their greatest threat. I would have thought.
In the wild, in the natural world, so jaguars, puma, and even crocodile to an extent are the top predators for tapir. I mean, when they're adult, they can be as big as 550 pounds, 600 pounds. So then they are someone to deal with then. So then human
Yeah.
become the biggest threat to them.
Especially with the vehicle collision.
Yeah.
Now at that size, are they slow moving? Is it similar to the manatee situation where you do want to give time in case a tapir may be crossing?
One of the problem I noticed with the tapir is that it is well camouflaged on the road, the color.
The color,
Oh, the
yeah, with
gray
the
road,
asphalt,
yes.
yeah.
So they can run, they can chase
Okay.
you, and they have sharp burst of quick speed.
Oh.
So yeah, they're not slow moving per se.
Yeah. Okay.
So what are we hoping to achieve out of this project?
Well, the project itself, I'm piggybacking on Lee book here.
Oh
Yeah.
man, go ahead. That's the idea actually.
Well,
Is to bring about greater awareness to tapir conservation in Belize and in the region. So the IUCN Tapir Specialist Group is a group of biologists, educators, zoo personnel from across the world that focuses on the conservation of the tapir, the 4 tapir species, and their habitat. So we work as a team. We work as a team. We work regionally and we work globally to protect tapirs. Locally in Belize, the goal is to find out where tapirs are,
yeah.
how many tapirs
your
we have in
baseline
Belize,
data.
you know, and really find out what are the local factors that are affecting the species here in Belize.
Nice. And this is a great educational tool. Lee, what made you make the decision that you wanted to publish a coloring book for kids about tapir?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've worked in conservation for quite a while now, and what I see is that unless we inspire the young generation to take care of their wildlife and their environment, then we're going to fight a losing battle.
Yeah.
And not that we can't or that we don't need to pursue conservation initiatives with adults as well, but if you can kind of ingrain that ethic at a young age, it can be really powerful. So the best ways that we can do that is with visual tools with young people, as we know. There's lots of research on that. So if we can, put together, we can simplify our conservation messages to a level that kids can engage with, in combination with images that they can colour in and draw and get used to how these things look, then I guess it's an assumption, but the kids would grow up with more of an appreciation for the animal. And also, as I said, we didn't want to just leave it at there's the cute tapir, but also think about what are the kind of things that are threatening tapirs and what humans can do to coexist with them.
Yeah.
We've been advocating, we've been hearing about the advocacy about tapir for many years. Are we taking heed of this? Is there any study to say, what we're doing is actually working? Are we taking heed of it?
Well, studies in Belize on tapirs are very minimal. A lot of observational studies have been done, but really to look at their ecology, no work really has been done on them. I mean, there's one paper published on tapir work in Belize that dates back to the 90s.
Wow.
Another Belizean, Wilbur Martinez, who's studying in Mexico, actually did his master's on tapirs, and he looked at the importance of water holes to the tapir population in central Belize, around the Runaway Creek area. But I think we've taken for granted that the tapir is our national animal and everybody protect and respect it. But we're living in a changing world now where that is not the case. April, as you rightly said, brought about a lot of conservation awareness to the younger people who grew up. I mean, I started at the zoo back in 1995 as an educator, and I actually look forward to April's birthday because to see the kids light up for a tapir birthday was really rewarding. And so when Lee asked to lend support to his book, I mean, I couldn't say no. This is exactly what I know light up kids. You know,
so
this is what
is going to be like the new April, right?
I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
So we have moved from celebrating April, the tapir birthday at the zoo, to now we have World Tapir Day, which is April 27th, and every April 27th globally, groups of tapir conservationists celebrate this day. And so we still have Tapir Birthday at the zoo, right? But we now look at it more from a global, regional.
On World Tapir Day.
Yeah, on World Tapir Day.
If somebody sees a tapir ailing, where can we call? Who to call? Is there a rehabilitation area for tapirs in Belize?
There you go, that's the one.
Oh, wow.
This is in the wild?
So this is actually provided to me by a resident in Steadfast. So the forest department, who is the authority when you have any ailing tapir or any incidents with tapir that you should call. But this video actually show what happened to a tapir when you clear them their home. If you look at how this particular tapir behave,
it's
lost.
It's lost.
It looks lost.
Yeah, came out in an area that's been cleared.
Yeah. And what was supposed to be its home isn't its home anymore.
Yeah, it was cleared to expand farming in that area.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So are you surprised, Lee, that obviously at some point in time you sat down and said, maybe we should do a coloring book, maybe you and your friend Te, is that how you pronounce it? Te? And now you have actually completed it. Were you surprised at the support you got in being able to get the project completed?
Yeah, I mean, this definitely doesn't happen on an individual basis. There's lots and lots of people involved in this. The printers of this, based in Belize, the office, they did a great job putting the book together from just a series of images, drawings, to actually a book. And they've done a lot of work pro bono to help get it out there. And even now what I've done is I've launched an appeal for funds online using a Kickstarter campaign. And anybody who wants to support, just type in Tenuk, T-E-N-U-K, onto Facebook, and you'll see the appeal, the call for support. And just a $10 donation can print 3 books, $10 Belize. But yeah, and I've also had a really big anonymous donation of 5,000 US. So we'll get to print 2,500 books, and what we want to do is get it sent out to the rural villages of Belize, and especially to the kids whose families perhaps can't afford to buy books. And so if we can get books to them in particular, especially those kids who live in areas where there is forest and left to maintain the connections with, then that would be just ideal. So I'd implore Belizeans who can afford to buy the book to buy a copy, so we can get it $10 Belize dollars. Okay. So we can get them sent out to kids who can't necessarily afford them.
Wow.
And why the name Tenuk?
Okay, so Tenuk actually means tapir in Bahasa. It's a name for the tapir in Bahasa, which is the language in Malaysia, on the other side of the world. And some of the names of the other animals are very Belizeanized.
Yes, Max.
Yeah, exactly. Max, which is mash. Yeah, that's mash as well. And Itsamna, which is the iguana.
Yes. The story is actually.
I was going to ask you, what's
nice
the synopsis of the story? Tell us very quickly.
Okay, young tapir leaving his mother to go and find his new territory.
Okay.
He encounters lots of the dangers of living as an animal, as a tapir in the human-dominated environment. He's going along and he meets different animals along the way who are facing similar problems. They see fires, they see forests cut down, they see roads where animals have been killed. And they're getting a bit lost, and so they encounter this young boy who's very friendly, and they're like, wow, it's lucky we met you. And the boy introduces their animals to his father's farm, which is actually an agroforestry farm, where the animals can pass across this road, and they can pass in the shade of the forest, and the tapir can go along and swim through the river in the cool river. and they can pass from one patch of forest to the next side. And everybody lives happily ever after.
Okay, the end.
Yes.
But another thing that I noticed about the story is actually educating the kids about how things are in terms of the soil. You know, trees are possible. It's very important. They give better soil, rainfall that attracts more friendly insects.
There's some
pollinate
subtle
flowers.
messages in
Yeah,
there.
so there are a lot of messages. So this is
Or
actually
even
a great
using
book.
the word agroforestry, the kids. will-
Which might be a bit,
Yeah.
Another quick question for me is, what is the meaning of Itzamna? What is Itzamna?
Well, I'm told by friends down in the Toledo district that is a word that's applied. It's one of the ancient Maya words for one of the gods, which was related to the iguana.
Itzamna.
Yeah, a lot of like the animals that we see had gods associated with
Wow.
them. So.
Excellent.
So, isn't this great that you had somebody decide that they want to help in your education process as well?
Well,
and you did offer your support for it as well.
Well, I mean, one of the cool things with the conservation field in Belize, we work together. And,
Yeah.
funds, resource, hard to come by. So if you can team up and have a great impact together, then it's the way to go.
That's right.
We are all working towards one cause, which is a better environment for Belize, for the wildlife, and why not work together?
So let's leave a public message for people to do their part in helping to protect the population of tapirs in the country. What can we do?
First of all, if you're driving, be aware that you're not the only one on the road. Wildlife use the road. Tapirs use the boom road a lot, so look out for them, especially at dusk and at dawn. Slow down, respect the crossing signs that are on the boom road. They're there for a purpose. I didn't just go there and erect them. I have studies that show that tapirs do cross the road there.
Yeah.
So that is one of the call.
So
I
be
wanna
advised
have.
that they may be crossing you. You just have to
Yeah.
be on the lookout for it as well. And where can people get copies of the book?
Right here on Coney Drive, just over there, at the WCS office, which is
Okay.
above Mamma Mia's Pizzeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And if they just search out that name on Facebook, everybody's on Facebook, then they'll find details of how to go about that. We don't have to put it all on screen and everything.
All right. And it's a coloring book with a very important story about
Yeah.
protecting our tapir. So thank you so much for coming in. This is a cool project, right?
Excellent.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna go ahead now and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.